Builder! What is this? This is the Freewell's new 7-in-1 magnetic filter system. You get variable NDs from 2 to 9 stops, 2 CPLs, glow mist filter, and glow mist variable ND options. If you're watching this video at launch, you can get it for $300 or $400 after launch. Check out the short film that I shot with all these filter options. Not bad, huh? The filters do not hinder sharpness of your lenses, there's no discernible X patterns that I could tell, and the variable ND color shift characteristics are towards yellow rather than green. Last but not least, each optics are coated to make cleaning easy from oils, water, or common scratches. Do I recommend it? If you are a narrative, commercial, music video, or documentary filmmaker, absolutely yes. Done. Roll that intro. Hey, what's going on everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. So today we're going to find out whether or not Freewell's new 7-in-1 magnetic filter set is going to be the right solution for you and your overall filmmaking kit. And I want to thank Freewell for sending this out to me so I can provide you with my review today on launch day. That's right, they've just launched an Indiegogo campaign. I have an affiliate link down below. The first 1,000 orders can get it at a discounted price of $300, which is approximately 25% discount. The next 2,000, $350, and eventually the full retail price is $400. By the end of this video, you'll realize that if you had to purchase 7 of these filters by itself, you're gonna probably spend anywhere from $500 to $800. So they've combined everything down into one pack, and in this video, through what it does, the tests, I'm gonna convince you why you need this filter set. So without further ado, let's get started. The Freewell 7-in-1 kit comes with a carrying case, a base ring, 2 first stage filters, and 4 second stage filters. Lastly, there's a nice magnetic lens cap. Using and swapping these filters on set is actually quite easy as they are all magnetic. If you want a basic variable ND, simply insert the VND base into the first stage area and then stick on the second stage variable ND with the stop marks facing away from the camera. Then when you take the VND base out and turn the VND filters around, they actually become circular polarizers. One is at 0 stops and the other one is at 5 stops. Lastly, we have the glow mist base that can be used on its own, but when you put the variable NDs in front of it, you get either 2 to 5 stops of mist variable ND goodness or up to 6 to 9 stops. There are additional markings here to ensure you're in the right orientation. For me, I don't really need to reference this at first. What I do is I stick on the filter and begin turning it until it hits a hard stop. Once it does, I check the marking. If it's not correct, I simply lift it past the hard stop and continue turning again because the next hard stop I hit will be the right one. If it keeps turning and it never hits a hard stop, that means you're in the circular polarizer mode, which does not have any hard stops. Simply flip this around so that you are in the right side for the variable ND filter mode. All of these optics are coated to protect easily from common scratches, water, dust, and oils, which is definitely awesome. If you're not too familiar with what these filters actually do, here's a super quick rundown. Variable NDs, or variable neutral density filters, allows you to control the amount of light that's actually going into your camera when you're outdoors where it's super bright. That way, you can actually keep your shallow depth of field if you want it. Photographers sometimes use this to kind of get that blurry stream or river kind of pictures because they're able to get longer exposures. The circular polarizer is a bit technical and hard to explain, but essentially you use it to see past reflections and glare. When you first put it in front of your lens, you'll actually need to rotate it a couple times to catch the right angle of which the circular polarizer will help you see through the reflection. You actually see me do this in the short film earlier. The mist filter blooms the highlights and causes sources to feel, well, misty or smoky by expanding the light's aura, if you will, further than normal. There are many types of these filters with varying degrees of effects, and this one is quite powerful. Filming the short film with this filter set was extremely easy, as I was able to swap out filters on the fly to get the various looks I wanted. Not only that, the optics were quite sharp and I did not notice any degradation to my overall image. Now, it is a little bit hard to see that in this short film, so why don't we go and look at some hard tests so you can see for yourself. Without further ado, let's check how each optic holds up in terms of sharpness. For the sharpness test, I set my lens aperture to a nice crisp f-stop of 5.6 so that we can see if there's any noticeable change in sharpness. This is also a 24 megapixel image blown up by 450%. As you can see, there is very negligible evidence of any softening happening here, and I definitely did not notice any softness when I was filming my short film. The CPL is also super sharp. The mist is also very sharp, it just may not look like it in comparison, as we can see the effects of the filter raising the blacks. Now let's check for any X patterns in the variable ND filters. This is quite common with cheap variable ND filter sets. From my eyes, I do not see any sort of X pattern occurring. If we did, it would look something like this from my cheap $25 variable ND filter. All filters, especially variable NDs, will cause color shift. In this test, I did a custom white balance on a gray chart and then looked at the vector scope to see how each filter shifts the color away from the custom white balance point, which you can see on the left. We can see that these filters cause a shift towards an orangey yellow color by a decent amount, nothing a custom white balance can't fix. So what's the bottom line here? Is the new Freewell 7-in-1 magnetic filter set something you should be thinking about for your overall filmmaking kit? And I have to say it's 100% yes, and I'm going to break all that down for you. First one is the budget. The fact that you're essentially saving anywhere from $200 to $400 some dollars and having all of those filter sets in one, that's a pretty big deal. And if you get the early bird special, you save even more money. But that's not it. Even though you're saving more money, the quality is not lost. They still have this great coating where it really helps you with water, dust, and oils, what have you, and it makes it extremely easy to clean versus the cheaper ones where they could be easily scratched, and when you're cleaning it, you can scratch it that way too. That's a hassle. This one, when you're cleaning it, it feels solid, it glides smoothly, so you know the optic quality is there. Speaking of optic quality, you really don't lose any sharpness from my tests that I've performed. The degradation in the image is not really there. It's still pretty darn sharp. I'm sure if you really pixel peep, you'll see some sort of difference, but especially when you're just shooting in 4K or maybe even up to 8K, not a big deal, because these were 24 megapixel images and they seemed just fine. And of course, with the variable ND, you're not seeing that dreaded X pattern that you see with some cheaper variable NDs. And last but not least, if you're already in the Freewell camp, or maybe you want to buy some of their other magnetic filters, those will work. Those will work with this setup. So that is actually a really key point here in where Freewell is going, and I kind of want to talk about this because I have a feeling the way Freewell has designed this with a first stage and a second stage magnetic system, they could literally create a whole bunch of different other types of filters that are designed to work in the first or second stage. And I don't know what those could be. Those could be something where it's going to cause different types of flares, or maybe something where they can remove the red channel a little bit, or the blue or the green. I don't know. But the fact that they make it so customizable for you to just change it out versus having to buy a dedicated filter and that's it, that is what makes it exciting for Freewell. I think in the future they can be designing a whole lot of inserts here that's going to allow us to get a very customizable image through filters. Now, I know there's going to be some concerns here because the one thing that I thought about too, was what about lens hoods? If you're trying to control flare or lights getting to the lens, the only real way to do it is with a matte box or a French flag. Now, I do have an idea. I'm drawing up a design, and I'm going to send it to Freewell to see, can this be doable? And if it is, cool. Then that's another accessory they can create in their overall lineup that's going to help a lot of filmmakers to control the light going into their lens. One thing that would be really cool is to see Freewell release some sort of focus ring clip-on to the second stage filters, because in the short film, I did a little racking of the circular polarizer, as you see here, and that was kind of hard to do because I had to tape on a focus gear ring that was on the verge of falling off, but it had just enough grip for me to actually do this. And if they do create some of these clip-ons, you can actually do this with a variable ND as well. You can kind of rack from 2 stops to 5 stops. But without further ado, let's actually talk about who is this actually for? Because believe it or not, even though I'm singing all the praises, there are a couple types of filmmakers or videographers where this doesn't necessarily make sense. So let's first talk about narrative filmmakers, my favorite thing to do. Narrative filmmakers is a definite yes. Even though if you don't think you're going to use the glow mist filter and the glow mist variable NDs, if you were just to buy the CPLs and these quality variable NDs, you're more or less going to be spending pretty much about the same price. So think of the glow mist as a free bonus. And I have to tell you, once you get an idea of how you can use the glow mist, because it doesn't work for every setup, but if you like to do some really interesting dramatic and moody movies, or maybe some scenes that have a more dreamlike look, this glow mist is going to come in handy. So for narrative filmmakers, I say it's a definite yes. If you are a documentary filmmaker, it's also a definite yes, because you're being thrown into setups all the time and you don't know what you're going to be battling with. So having those variable NDs, the CPLs, and if you're saying, I don't know, maybe you're in like this really cool, low lit, I don't know, restaurant, sushi bar, what have you, having that glow mist on there could give a nice glowing atmosphere. So that is something to think about. And again, even if you don't think you're going to use the glow mist, it's pretty fast to swap out. And again, it's almost basically like a free bonus. So documentary filmmakers, yes. Wedding filmmakers, probably not. And the reason I'm saying this is because I feel like a wedding videographer, you're probably just using a variable ND at the most. Maybe you're going to use a CPL as well, but probably not. I would assume variable ND is the main thing you want. So I would say probably not. Unless you do see it a reason to use the glow mist filter to get a dreamy look, sure. But if that's not really what you've done in the past, then probably not. Now, corporate filmmakers that are doing a bunch of interviews, definitely not. Because you're basically already bringing in lights, you're setting things up, you're dialing things in. Variable ND is probably not a thing you actually really need. Maybe a CPL, but again, this entire filter set probably doesn't make sense for a corporate filmmaker. YouTubers, probably not unless you are a traveling vlogger that actually uses a full-on DSLR and not something like an action cam or maybe a Sony ZV-1. I would say for travel vloggers, probably, because depending on your time and your location, again, you could be inspired to be using that mist filter, and maybe you're going to start playing with the CPL a little bit more because honestly speaking, I never played with the CPL before, and I'm very surprised to see how much it brings back into the image in terms of clarity and saturation. So that's something I'm going to be thinking about a lot more going forward. But otherwise, if you're just a studio YouTuber like this, there is no reason for me to put a CPL on here. And pretty much, I don't necessarily want to use a mist effect because that's going to glow everything in this setup. And last but not least, commercial or music video types of filmmakers. I would say this is also a definite yes, because again, you don't necessarily know if you're going to be shooting outside and suddenly the sun changes, you got to do the variable ND, you got the CPL, or maybe you're doing something that's very moody and you want that mist effect. This will give you a lot more options depending on what you're inspired to shoot when you're actually on location or for whatever design for the cinematography of your music video. And hey, that is it for this week, everybody. Again, Freewell is running an Indiegogo campaign to start, and the early bird special is $300, then it goes to $350, and then ultimately it's $400. I do have an affiliate link down below, as well as any other retailers that are going to sell it after the fact if you're watching this video later. And of course, if you use those links, it does help out this channel a little bit with a little compensation. So if you guys have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it down below. I will get to them as fast as I can. But until then, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next one.